Anyway, to bring us up to date on all of this and give us an overview of what's happening and what may happen is Webster Tarpley. Hello, Webster. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Good, good. How's it feel to be a star of Russia Today?
I don't know if I am. What are you referring to?
Oh, you're a regular on there, aren't you? Just about?
Not lately.
I'll call
They
you.
have their ups and downs. I think lately the choice has been trending, in a different direction, let's say.
How odd. Well, I'll give them a call. I'll fix it.
All right, fine. I think what's important is to follow, first of all, what is new under the sun, and that is the mass strike. And that is this process that began here in the United States, at least back in February, with the really general strike in the state of Wisconsin,
right,
followed up by similar developments in Ohio and some other Midwest states. And then, after a period of relative quiescence, maybe, this then became these occupations. Now, there's a fundamental dualism in the Occupy Wall Street, because at the bottom of it, this is a rank-and-file, grassroots, capillary development, which is undoubtedly real, and it's extremely positive because it represents the 75 to 80% of the U.S. population who are anti-Wall Street. They're smart enough to know that the main enemy is finance capital, and the control of the finance capitalists over the government is what you need to break. Right? By contrast, the reactionaries, the Ron Paul camp, let's say, this is 15 to 20% at the very most. And that was the potential, that was the upper limit, the ceiling over the Tea Party, was that those were the reactionaries. They were coming forward with their traditional anti-New Deal, anti-New Frontier, anti-Great Society positions, and most people don't want that, because it, of course, means that they're coming to strip you of your economic rights, of all of your hard-won benefits, right? Your Medicare, your Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, unemployment benefits, S-chips so your children can get health care, and so forth. So now we have this Occupy Wall Street. So I talked to a guy who said that he was going around little towns in Colorado, and every one of them is occupied. It has reached down in an amazing way to all sorts of nooks and crannies of U.S. national life. I'd be interested to know a little bit more about the Farm Belt, but that Colorado example may tell us quite a bit. Also, we've seen some pictures of some kids getting beat up at Occupy Tulsa, so that's pretty much in the center of things.
Well, one sheriff in Tennessee announced that they're no longer going to arrest any protesters.
Well, they had something going in Nashville, and then that got attacked last week. We'll talk about that in a second. But the basic idea is that this is a real grassroots anti-Wall Street movement, and to this extent, they're absolutely right. The problem is that you have this counterinsurgency apparatus. Now, I think we talked about this to some extent last time, but it's basically the overall concept that the ruling class is using through the various foundations, through the provocateurs, through the intelligence agencies, frankly, because that's who it is, and the left wing of the Democratic Party, and the bought and paid for hacks of certain trade unions, although not all by any means. It's anarchism. Various breeds of anarchism are being used to wreck, to brainwash, to destroy. Now, when you say 75 to 80% of the American people are hostile to Wall Street, but then you say, in order to do that, you've got to become an anarchist. You lose most of them, quite frankly, because people don't want to be anarchists. And indeed, why should they be? This is not a good thing to be in my book or in many other books.
Not constructive.
So here's what it is. Adbusters is a foundation. It's located in Vancouver, British Columbia. So it's already Canadian. It has very shadowy people running it. And the method there is the method of the Situationist International. And these were people, this was a group of washed-up artists and intellectual fakers and beatniks, basically, in the late 1950s, who were scooped up by NATO intelligence to create some kind of an intellectual opposition to General de Gaulle of France, because they were building up towards the French May of 1968, which was to a very large degree a destabilization of France by the CIA and the British. So this is where we get the language of the détournement and culture jamming and everything else. And you can look at their website. They have some very sinister things up there. They say they want to create international brigades of unemployed youth in Europe to cross national borders and to attack oppressors. Now, this sounds very much like left fascism, and I think there is pretty strong elements of that in there, too. But the main thing is this anarchist method and the notion of the General Assembly, the facilitators, and the endless filibuster. Right? So you can't have a majority vote on anything. You can't ever get a clear statement of goals, of a program, demands. You can't take a stand. You can't raise your flag with something meaningful on it. It's this endless process, essentially inward-looking, right, of our General Assembly, and it's very anti-authoritarian, it's very politically correct, and it's guaranteed to be impotent. In other words, we're now at day 45 to 50 in many of these different places, and most of them still don't have a program of demands. And as Frederick Douglass told us many years ago, power concedes nothing without a demand.
How can that be, Webster? How can nothing have coalesced so far? I've been wondering.
You can. I've been down to the two examples we have here in Washington. I was there last week, I guess, and then again today. I was at the McPherson Square, which is near the White House, sort of a little bit north. And then I also went down to Freedom Plaza, which is down on Pennsylvania Avenue, Lower Pennsylvania Avenue, where you're looking from the back of the White House down to the dome of the Capitol. And you've got this large square. It's by National Theater and the Department of Commerce and so forth. So what do they spend their time discussing? Purely tactical questions. In other words, trivia. What to have for lunch? Where to put the tent? What kind of speech code to have? They have speech codes.
What a nice what a neat new iPhone you have. That kind of.
No, well, I don't know. But they claim, of course, that they're not run by hierarchical systems. But of course they are. Everybody with a brain can see that the demonstrations here are run by two wreckers, in my opinion, Kevin Zeese and David Swanson, who come from the orbit of the foundations and the left-wing trade union bureaucracy and the Obama campaign. Because the whole idea of most of this is to convoy this mass upsurge and make it into the impotent left wing of the Obama for president campaign. But in order to do that, you've got to make sure that there are no demands, right? No program, no nothing. Now, I've come up with, and with the help of others, right, because this has been a process of discussion with people in many cities, in Portland, in San Francisco, in Denver, in New York City, in Boston, people up in Vermont, people here in Washington.
Go right through the break network. Okay. Go ahead. Keep going, Webster.
Okay. So, look, you got to do two things with a program. First of all, you've got to, on the objective plan, you've got to put forward demands that really will solve the problem of the economic depression. In other words, it's absolutely asinine to go into the streets and say, you know, we're here to express our rage and our alienation and our disgust, and we're here to vent our anger, and this is a day of rage, and we're here to protest. This gets you nowhere. This is absolutely impotent, right? This is actually childish. Revolutionaries don't do that. A revolutionary says, I want power. Give me power, and here's what I'll do. Or give me a piece of power, and here's what I'll do. And that's what you've got to do. So what would be the main things? The one that's very timely right now is the Wall Street sales tax. I say timely because we basically scored a breakthrough last week under mass pressure. These fakers at Adbusters, right, contravening their own nonsense about how everything they did was bottom-up, you know, grassroots and everything. They put out a call to make last Saturday an international day of struggle for the Wall Street sales tax. Now, unfortunately, they don't call it the Wall Street sales tax. They call it the Robin Hood tax, which is a very bad name for this, right?
Well, I call it the Tarpley tax.
Well, thank you. The Tobin tax, again, I would just stick to Wall Street sales tax, because the important thing is many people don't know who Tobin is. Many people don't like the idea of Robin Hood, right? They think they're going to get robbed, right? Who knows? But the Wall Street sales tax says it all, because it means you pay sales tax on your purchases. Wall Street pays nothing on their quadrillions of dollars of turnover every year and trillions a day. They pay absolutely nothing. So make them pay. If you don't like Wall Street, then do something about it. Don't just diss them, right? Don't just defy them. Hit them hard. Hit them in the labanza. Hit them in the pocketbook.
Right.
And that's the Wall Street sales tax. It also has the very good social effect of suppressing speculation.
It's only 1%, too.
It's 1%. And the fact that I was very gratified to see that when these fakers from Adbusters last Tuesday, October 25th, when they came out and said, all right, they said, in response to our critics, we're going to call for a 1% Robin Hood tax. Now, the 1% is basically my signature amount. So I was very gratified, and I guess they counted me as one of their critics, because I sure am. So these are fakers, and they didn't want to do this, but we forced them to do it. Very interesting. That's when the big-time police repression began. Within 12 hours of that announcement, that's when you had the cops in Atlanta, the cops in Oakland going wild, and in Nashville, Tennessee, and in San Diego, all within at least, say 24 to 36 hours. But the big stuff came within about 12 hours. And this one unfortunate young veteran got hit with a tear gas canister and was in critical condition for a time. And it seems that he's going to be okay. But you can see, as long as the Occupy Wall Street had no program, they were a curiosity, right? The ruling class could say, oh, kids, isn't that wonderful, and so forth. But when you're saying tax Wall Street speculation, right, hit Wall Street speculative incomes, then you become a threat, and then they lash back. Now, just to mention this, tomorrow is November 3rd, as we're taping or as we're live, and here we have the National Nurses United. National Nurses United, again, I would say is the best union in the United States. They are the ones who fought Schwarzenegger tooth and nail, and they are now leading the charge for a financial transaction tax. Now, they say a meaningful financial transaction tax. And they want to take this to the G20, and they have demonstrations they have one here at the White House at 11:30 a.m., right? If you're downtown, go to that. Otherwise, if you're in Place Franklin Roosevelt in Cannes, then you know where to go. You can go to that demonstration. So that's National Nurses United. And this is co-sponsored by a lot of the Socialist International, right? People who are maybe not so good. On the other hand, I'll tell you how to handle it in just a second here. I'm just looking for the other people. Anyway, it's basically the European Trade Union Confederation. So here we go. The International Trade Union Confederation and a bunch of other groups. Now, this is the Wall Street sales tax. This is also the big issue at the G20 in Cannes, right? This is what Germany, France, European Union, the Vatican, AFL-CIO, unions on all the continents. They're demanding a Wall Street sales tax. Unfortunately, many of them call it the Robin Hood tax. Some of them call it the Tobin tax, which is fine, financial transaction tax. A lot of times they talk as if this money goes to some supranational authority to take care of the polar bears, the pelicans, or the rainforest. No. You have to put it in the national treasuries, because this is the basis of maintaining the social safety net. The things that have to be paid for that are not long-term investments, they're immediate investments in your human capital, mental capital, in your labor force. This has got to be paid for out of current tax revenue. And the big problem, of course, is Wall Street is generally untaxed. They pay nothing. GE paid no tax. Everybody knows that. But the big one is the turnover, and it's not even the incomes of these individuals, right? Sure, it would be nice to slap Koch and Soros and so forth with a heavy tax, but that is not very much money compared to the quadrillions that go through these markets. So It's important to get out there and fight for the right version of this, because there is a Delphic version, as I'm saying. I get a lot of pedantic people saying to me, yeah, but